What's up, everybody? What is happening? How we doing on this Friday? Man, this is a crazy Friday. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis. Gunner, we've had breaking news like nonstop all day, and we just got the latest. According to Tim McManus, ESPN.com, Brandon Graham is staying with the Eagles on a one-year deal, passing up the opportunity to test free agency. So BG is back, man. BG, it's going to be up the deal worth up to about $6 million, which Ed Kratz had a report earlier in the week saying it could be 2 years, $12 million. So it's right in that money range, right? But it's a one-year deal. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense for the Eagles to bring back an incredibly productive guy at what I think is a reasonable rate. Love it. It makes perfect sense for BG, who was very comfortable here, knows his role. The role was very good to him last year. It will be very similar again this year. But Derek, the way I view this, man, you bring back three guys now in BG, in Sweat, and Reddick, who are double-digit sack guys. So as much as you might take a lot of hits on the back end, which we'll get into in a second, but you're returning a pretty good nucleus who get after the quarterback here.
And that's why I said, even if they lose a multitude of free agents, the cupboard's not bare. You know, it's not great as it was. I mean, 2022, we were spoiled like never before in a wealth of riches on defensive personnel. But when you consider the holdovers, it wasn't bad. Is it great? Is it better than good? That remains to be seen. Obviously, you have to find and plug and play some players, younger players, cap-friendly players. Doesn't mean they can't have a good defense. But when you bring a Brandon Graham back, you are bringing in the consummate locker room guy. And when I say that, I don't just mean a football player. I mean a guy that you want young players to look up to, pattern themselves after as young professional athletes. Unfortunately, we have too many young athletes out there that once they get a dollar, they lose their minds in terms of spending and think they've arrived. Right. And older players try to tell a lot of them, look, man, it's a maturation process being a professional athlete. What you have today may not be the case tomorrow. Some players listen. Unfortunately, many others don't. But you have a guy like Brandon Graham, who everybody respects in that locker room, to continue what he's doing with these guys, because there's going to be transition, whether it's veterans or young players. There's more transition coming. You want that kind of stability. If Jason Kelsey comes back, we know Lane Johnson is coming back. Guys like that are the guys who are the epitome of leaders in a locker room as men as well as professional athletes.
Yeah, no question. So I'll give you a little quote here. Josina Anderson had it on Twitter. You can follow her at Josina Anderson. Just got off the phone with, this is her tweet, just got off the phone with Eagles defensive lineman Brandon Graham. And this is the quote from Brandon. Quote, "I haven't officially signed yet, but it's pretty much done. I'm coming back. It wasn't about the money. I love Philly. I don't want to miss a championship with Jalen. Jalen is the man. I told my agent, make it happen." Is that not the most Brandon Graham quote like ever,
yep,
right? I mean, that is so him. It tells you where his values are, what he's all about. He's all about the team. I love it, man. I love it.
It's not about the money. He's made his money. He understands that. Mm-hmm. You know, he's past his big money prime, but he's still at 34 is a serviceable defensive lineman in the National Football League. And he embraced a reduced role. He told us that all last offseason. He embraces a reduced role. He's not one of these guys whose ego is bigger than the overall team and what you're trying to accomplish. So everything that he has said and the fact that they've arrived at this, I'm not surprised. Now, as a businessman, when you hear rumors that Detroit and Cleveland are interested, you got to listen. And then you sit back, you talk to your spouse if you're married and say, you know what, is this good for us? Even if it's just 1 year, 2 years, is this good for us? If we take less, are you okay with that? Right. Do we want to move the kids around? Even though we could go home to Detroit, do we want to keep them here where they're comfortable? We know people here. We're in a community here. Or do we want to go back home where we're around family? Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of things just not about let's get it done. You said it's a family decision, man.
Yep, absolutely. And he handled it as well as you can handle it. That's for sure. All right. So that's piece one of this thing today. Piece two, we'll just stay with the Eagles for a minute because there's other sports as well. But Darius Slay has been granted permission to seek a trade. Now, let's start with this. You last week discussed the possibility of him being traded. So let me first off, hat tip.
Appreciate you, bro.
Number one, because you're always on this stuff.
Yeah.
And what typically and I'll speak for you in this instance, which I never do, but I will for a second. What happens a lot of times when not you sometimes, but everybody gets this sometimes. You'll report something, and then there's a lot of people who want to jump on it, poo-poo it, and talk about what garbage it is and all this other stuff. Okay. And then I know for a fact, because I got blowback as well on this, that when you reported that, people were saying, no way, it's never going to happen, D-gun, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, you're too classy to do the I told you so. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to get traded. You just said there's a distinct possibility he could get traded. And here we are. Here we are. So the floor is yours.
You're right. In this chat, this daily chat, as well as Twitter, people make comments. I said, okay, they know more than I do. I'm just throwing stuff out there against the wall. Okay. There's a good possibility he could return to the Eagles because, first of all, you have to find a trade partner. I don't think anybody at 32 is going to give Darius Slay the kind of money he's looking for, whatever the case may be. And from what I understand as of this morning was he wants a restructured deal, wants more money. The Eagles are not willing to comply with his wishes right now, which led to them saying, okay, go out there. His agent is Drew Rosenhaus. Go out there and see what you can get. And if Slay leaves, the Eagles are fine with that because they're thinking, okay, what can we get in return by way of picks? As we've talked about, the Eagles are good in the first, second, and third rounds in draft picks, but they don't pick again until the 7th round. They have a total of 6 picks, okay? And they get no compensatory picks this year. So Howie wants to get some of those middle round picks. That's where you build the foundation of a team, is those middle round picks. And because they're in no man's land rounds 4, 5, and 6, Howie wants to get multiple picks. I get that. Darius Slay, you've served your purpose well here. If it's time for you to move on, then it's time for you to move on. People are like, there's no way they're not going to have Slay or Bradbury or both. Well, yeah, there is. Happens all the time in the National Football League. You don't want to see it happen, but it has to happen sometimes to get younger, to get better.
Take a look at Tennessee, by the way. Tennessee's whacking everybody left and right. Bud Dupree, Luan, Woods. We could go on and on. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're right.
No, Derrick Henry possibly being traded.
Yeah, they're just slicing and dicing, man. So are the Rams.
And you look at what Utah did in the NBA last year. They gutted that whole team. An organization identifies, okay, we've gone with this nucleus, we think, as far as we can go. It's time to try something different.
Yeah.
And that's what every team in the NFL does. If you don't get that brass ring at the end, we've got to try something different. This worked okay up to a point, but it's not working enough for us. Now, what the Eagles did last year almost worked to perfection for them. And they understood they were top heavy in terms of what could possibly happen. Now we're starting to slowly see it. And if they get younger to get better, you may have to take a step back a year to get back to where you want to go, meaning you'll get to the playoffs, but you may not get to the Super Bowl. That's all right, because you're bringing in a whole new wave of players that are going to get that playoff experience, which will help them down the road, as it did with this team in 2021 when they had a bunch of young players and a young quarterback at the helm. They got tattooed by Tampa Bay, but look at the valuable lesson those players learned to get to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
It's just a revolving cycle in the NFL.
Especially in that league. And the other thing is, too, Derek, people are making the parallel that 1 and 1 equals 2. Like, in other words, if Slay gets traded, that means automatically Bradbury's back. It does not. It doesn't mean that. It means you're going to have some money freed up to be able to do some other things. It's going to be, it could mean, like you said, potentially more picks added, certainly in the middle of the mix of this thing. But yeah, you could be looking at an entirely new starting corners for sure.
Yes.
And for that matter, whole new secondary, because Epps and CJGJ are all free agents, man. This could look completely different on the back end for the Eagles.
Absolutely. And people don't want to come to grips with the realization. Young players that they say they don't want to see back there, like Job and some of these guys, may be getting extended playing time. It's part of that growth process. Every player doesn't develop or accelerate at the same rate, and sometimes you got to go through the fires to get to where you want to be. and hopefully what these young men who had inconsistent contributions in 2022 will utilize that to their advantage to get that much better in 2023. It remains to be seen. Some players may never take that next step, but you hope that what you have in house is good enough to get you to that next level and to get you out from being so cap heavy. When you have three, and then you have 3 of the first 94 picks in the draft coming up as well.
Four
of the first 94 picks in the draft. Dude, that's a good place to be in to try to get younger.
Right. And it's a good corner draft. I know you don't always want to necessarily just draft based off of need, but there are some, especially Derek, as you know, there's going to be such a rush on the quarterbacks, which is going to leave a lot of players, whether you want to go interior defensive line, whether you want to go edge, whether you want to go corner, whatever, that are going to be sitting there. Certainly if you stay put at 10 and, or you dangle that 10, move down a little bit, you know, X is going to be there at player X, player Y, whatever. And you can, this is how you quickly turn it over, man. I know right now we all wanted everything to be run back and the same exact team take a run next year. I get it. I would have loved to have seen that too. But the reality is that's not what it's going to be. This is how you go about an aggressive on the move. I'm not going to say rebuild or retool. That's not what they're doing. But when you have an offense that they have and you have a pass rush that they have, you can fix things on the back end. You may take a little bit of a step back right away because they're young, likely going to be young, but you'll be better for it as you go forward.
You have to. It's that revolving cycle in the NFL, and look at how many teams right now are restructuring players. Today, all of a sudden, the restructuring frenzy is going crazy across the NFL. You know why? Because tampering's coming up a few days from now. Teams are already thinking, okay, we got to free up some money to go after this guy and possibly go after this guy, or maybe we can trade this guy and get some more draft picks so we can do this. I'm not surprised one bit. You know, now the onus is on Howie, because if they're determined to get younger, he's had 2 good drafts the last 2 years. You got to hit home runs again this year, more so than the previous 2 years. You have to hit home runs this year, because you're going to have to plug and play a lot more players than you wanted to, or maybe you anticipated before the season was over. And so now you got to get behind your closed doors with your scouting staff, and you got to make sure that your draft board is impeccable this year, because everybody you want is not going to be where you want them, and they're going to be gone before you get them. So what are your second and third options as well? And you got to make sure whoever you get can be somebody that can help us. They may not have to be every down players right away, a few of them, but they've got to give us some kind of contributions so we can continue to build this thing in 2024 as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what it is, man. I mean, that's what you're doing here. And I think Slay, for me, look, I've been watching him over the last couple of years. He was a huge upgrade off of what they had. And he's still a really good corner, but he's far from great. And he did not have in my opinion, a quality close the last year. Thought he was okay. He wasn't special by any stretch. Bradbury was better. So I can live with this if understanding the plan. And like we talked about, not only do you have to get this year's draft right, the guys you already have in house have to be good.
Yes.
You know, if Jordan Davis goes there and stinks out the joint, and
that's a problem.
Cam Jurgens can't play at guard if he fills in for Sayamalo and or Nakobe Dean can't play, that's a problem. You're going to have problems, man, because it's hard to win every week 38-35.
Yeah,
it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Very few teams can do that, man. And there's always that 1 or 2 games where your automatic points just don't come. Everybody has an off day in life. You know, we've seen that time and time again. But I can't emphasize this enough. I like the position the Eagles are in terms of roster right now, especially in the offensive side of the football. Do they need to tweak it a little bit? Yep, they will. You know, how well will it work when they retweak it? Don't know. Will they have to make major cosmetic overhauls on defense? Well, free agency's coming up. We assume they will. I don't know. I still sit here thinking how he's going to surprise us and be able to get 1 or 2 of his guys back to go along with the Brandon Graham and still be able to take care of Jalen Hurts. You know, nobody does it better in the NFL in terms of restructuring money than Howie. But I do believe this defense is going to have significant new look. Coaching, players, it all has to come together at some point. How long will it take? That's a key, especially with the type of schedule they have coming up next fall.
Yeah. And look, this doesn't mean he's going to be traded. it means he's
Right.
probably either going to be dealt or this thing's going to be restructured. Apparently, he wasn't real happy with restructuring. There's rumors that they wanted him to take a pay cut. He isn't happy about that. He's made it very clear. He wants more money. I get it. There's some kind of impasse, and his agent's Drew Rosenhaus. So, this will. I don't know how smooth this is going to go or bumpy it's going to go, whatever the case may be. But you got a couple of heavyweights butting heads here with him and Howie.
Well, I will say this in Drew Rosenhaus, whether you like him or not, there's a reason why he gets the bulk of the big name players in the NFL. He is a king of wheeling and dealing. And if there's an agent out there that can dangle a Darius Slay in front of other teams to see what's biting, this Drew Rosenhaus is that guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Drew could find a trade partner for them. It's just a matter of what that team's offering. Does it pique the Eagles' interest in terms of trying to make a deal and move out from under Slay? I think Slay is due to make $17 million this year, and his cap hit is $26 million. That's right. A big cap hit for a team that has to move in a different direction and try to free up some money to do some other things. If Slay is not willing to restructure his contract like some players are, then it tells me it's time to move on from him. He came out the other day and said he wants to be here. He wants to do that. With players who say that, take the road of Elaine Johnson. They find a way to help the team, free up money so you can help keep the team competitive at its highest level. If Slay is all about trying to get his money right now, that tells me then it's time to move on and look for somebody to replace him.
Yeah. So from an Eagle standpoint, that's the big news today. They've restructured Jake Elliott to free up a little bit of coin. We knew that was coming. Yeah. You figure Lane's probably next. Beyond that, they hired DJ Elliott yesterday to be the linebackers coach. He comes over from Temple. He has not coached in the NFL. He's got a long career in college football. The sub headline to that is no Matt Patricia, which I'm sure people are rejoicing over. Mm-hmm. So they get DJ Elliott. Big news beyond even the Eagles, man. It's been a crazy day. Flyers have fired Chuck Fletcher. Yeah, he's out. Right now, Danny Briere's the interim. Apparently, this is the start of a lot of things. Gunner, this needs to be wiped clean. This needs to be flame thrower just going across the board here and get all the old guard out. I know the traditions. I know how much people love the Broad Street Bullies, right? Clarkey and Holmgren and all those guys. I get it. I was there too as a kid, but it's time to reinvent this thing completely. And this is the first step. Here's the other thing. Why are you we're going to have Al Morganti join us, by the way, at 1:30 with Sal Palantonio at 1 o'clock. We got a loaded show today. I'll ask you this and I'll ask Al this later. Why would you have him be here during the trade deadline?
I have no idea.
Why would you have him
I believe because they were giving him one last chance to see if they can move. James Van Riemsdyk is going to be a free agent this year. I believe they were trying to move him and possibly getting some young pieces back. He was unable to do that. Now, Fletcher came out and said there was no trade partners for Van Riemsdyk. Okay. That's his story. The organization might have said going in, you've got to make some kind of move. We've got to get something in return for him before he's a free agent. And it didn't happen. That could have been a part of the story as well. But you look at his track record since he's been here, it has not been a very good track record in terms of putting together competitive team. So I do believe they gave him that one last chance at the trade deadline to do something. It didn't happen. They said, okay, we've gone as far as we can go with this guy. This season's a wash, just like last season was. I mean, this team hasn't been to the playoffs since, 2019, I believe it is?
Well, they had one appearance in the playoffs in his 4 years. And it was, that's it. It was the bubble year, I believe. Yeah.
Wow.
Or whatever we're calling it, the NBA equivalent to the bubble. Yeah, I know. It's highly frustrating. So we'll talk to Al about that. Can't wait to talk to Sal, too. Coming up at 1 o'clock. Phillies, man, you think we're done? We're not done. Not really loving either one of these things, but I guess it could have been worse. So Andrew Painter, the 19-year-old phenom, we've been waiting for an update, Derek. It's been 9 days since he had tenderness in that elbow. So we finally get some answers now. They put a release out. So they're shutting him down for 4 weeks. Okay, so equivalent to a month. Right proximal ulnar collateral ligament sprain. Sprain is the key word here. So their hope is just be a little cautious with this thing. Shut the guy down for a month. Things should be fine. We'll see. you start hearing ulnar collateral and all that stuff, I start getting really nervous when it comes to pitchers, man.
Well, the good thing is him being 19, 19-year-olds heal a lot quicker than 29-year-olds.
Very true.
So maybe a 30-day rest is exactly what he needs. But I wouldn't put a timetable on it. When you're right. When you're talking about that UCL ligament, that's a tricky ligament, man. And that thing, once it becomes irritated, it can frustrate you for an entire season. See, there's no rush on this kid to come to the major leagues. There's really no rush in him to be anywhere to pitch. Everybody knows what he is. The organization knows he is the creme de la creme of the pitching staff of the future of this organization. If you have to shut him down 2-3 months, so what?
Right.
We talk about there's a possibility he could break camp with the big club coming back north after training camp. Yeah. If he doesn't, this pitching staff is still very much intact. He doesn't need to pitch AAA, AA, single A right now.
Right.
First and foremost, I don't want to see him end up like Strauss down in Washington.
Strasburg, yeah.
Strasburg. Yeah. Once Strasburg had that arm injury, he's never the same pitcher. And I don't want to see this happen to this kid at an early age. Shut them down now. I'm going to give the Phillies the benefit of the doubt that they have a great medical staff, good training staff that will treat this thing with kid gloves.
Right.
Don't put a definitive timetable on him like 30 days, something like that. I would just say week to week.
Yeah, tell me how you're feeling, man. Let's talk in a couple of weeks, and if you're still not right, good. We'll take. Look, this could potentially be a huge bullet dodged. Potentially, if this is all this is. You get the kid some rest. He comes back better than ever. Very much could be that. Let's glass half full as far as that goes.
Absolutely.
The other one, I'm not as concerned, but a little bit. They shut down Ranger Suarez too. He was pitching in the World Baseball Classic, and felt a little tightness in the forearm. They shut it down. He's back in Clearwater. He talked to, I think, Alex Coffey, who we had on the show last week or earlier this week. Sorry, from the Inquirer. And said, look, it's nothing to worry about. I'm just shutting it down for a little bit. I felt some tightness. I just don't want to take any chances. Okay.
Well, extra pitching during the offseason, that's understandable. They still have, 3 weeks before they have to come back?
Yeah, 3 weeks. Yep, 3 weeks. So, absolutely.
There's no rush on him. Give his arm some rest, Let the man rest up. He doesn't need to pitch in training camp, spring session. We know what he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
Get him ready for when it counts most, man. A lot of these players, they play in these tournaments and these winter ball things. And, and when you're used to having your body shut down at a certain point, it's like shock value when you continue to do it instead of taking care of your body, let it heal up, things like that. So he put a little strain on his body. If he says no big deal, take him for his word. Yeah. Get him ready because April will be here. Late March, April will be here sooner than you think.
Yeah. All right. So, man, we came out of the chute firing, man. We got a lot in store for you today. See everybody in the chat section. What's up, guys? We appreciate you, everybody streaming, everybody listening. Barrett, vacation. Apparently, he's having a tough time, Gunner, trying to reel in some of those fish in the Florida Keys.
He was straining. He was really straining on one of them. I told him
we should Tone. See if you can pull that up, Tone, that he sent to us in the group text with I think Captain Tony sent it with Barrett over on the side of the boat trying to get it done. See if we could get that pulled up. We'll give people a little taste of what's going on in Barrett's world. He was out early today. Sunrise.
I told him and Captain Tony, I said, hey, I don't want to just see him reeling. I want to see what this fish looks like because that pole was bent over.
Yeah.
I said, I want to see what the fish is he's got on there.
It's funny if he pulls up a tire. No, but we didn't get a chance to see. We didn't get a chance to see the end of it. We just saw him struggling with it a little bit. So we'll see if we can pull that up. But yeah, busy day, man. We got Sal at 1, Al Morgani at 1:30. Sixers are playing tonight in Portland. Matisse Thybulle comes back and he's doing a little whining, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And obviously the big news in Flyers world with Chuck Fletcher out. Danny Briere is the interim GM for the time being. But we were going to hit everything, man. We're going to get to all of it. That's for sure. And I'll tell you, we were sitting there early this morning. I'm like, man, what are we going to talk about today? What are we going to do? And it was like, bop, 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 bop. Everything starts coming in. And then right before we got on the show, we had the news about Brandon Graham. All right. So let's, we have it, Tone. All right, let's do it. So here's a little video of Barrett. This is from earlier. This is like late morning, I would say, somewhere around there on the boat with Captain Tony. Here we go. We got to play the video, Tone, if we can, unless it's frozen, not just the still. All right.
Okay. Not,
There we go.
not
All right.
quite there.
There you go. All right. Here it is.
Okay, now look at how he's laboring.
He's
Okay.
laughing too, but in fairness, but yeah. He's having a tough time.
Look. Now Barrett's a big. Now look at how that pole's bent over.
Yeah.
Barrett is 6'5", 340 pounds, right?
Strong as an ox.
And he's laboring with that whatever's on the end of that line would have pulled me over the side, man. I'm only 225, so
yeah, my man's having a tough time.
Look, I mean that pole is straight down. Whatever it is,
yeah, I
could
know.
be a group. It could be a grouper. It could be a tuna. I mean, shoot.
You know, man. You know better than that. Thanks, Tone. Appreciate it, man. You know better than I do. That looked like if Barrett's struggling like that, that's something. That's a big boy. He's trying to reel in right there, man. That is no joke.
I keep texting him and Captain Tony, hey, where's the picture of the fish? I don't want to hear it got away. I want to see the picture of the fish.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm waiting to see that as well. Hopefully they send that so we can see exactly what he caught.
Yeah, be interesting. Yeah. All right, so let's come back. Let's dig a little bit further into the Eagles. I got a couple of questions. We'll still talk about Brandon Graham. We'll talk about Slay. But I got a couple of questions I want to pose to you regarding specifically Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And Jalen Hurts, who was honored last night at the Maxwell Club Awards. So we'll do all of that when we come back. So don't go anywhere. Busy day, man. It's happening fast and furious. And the way this day's going, don't be surprised if something else comes down.
It's still. I'm looking at Twitter. It's still a lot of chatter on Twitter, man, about movings and comings and goings and. It's a great way to end the week, except I'm beat up, but it's a great way to go in this week.
And we need to get that. So we'll talk about that when we come back, why you're a little worse for the wear. All right. We'll do that when we come back also. All right. Don't go anywhere. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances can be a very scary proposition. That's for sure. And I'm right there, man, front of the line for a long period of time. But I can tell you from personal experience that I found someone who I trust, who you can trust, and that's Jim Murray of Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, if you have a business and you're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground, that's another resource that Jim can help you with. I know I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover to Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be as well. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751, or you can email him, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim